Now joining us, Congresswoman Alysson Schwartz. Thanks for coming on the Young Turks again. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
All right, so let me start with the usual. What did you think of the speech?
Well, I thought the president was terrific, and it was, a challenge. We all knew it was sort of an important. Always, the State of the Union is always an important speech, but the president was very clear about the problems he inherited, with the facts of the situation, or the major challenges facing our nation, and he really called on us to solve these problems and consider the country first and our reelection second, and really said, let's tackle jobs and let's do health care, and energy is important, and our role in the world, and our success as a nation, and our success for our families who are really struggling right now calls on us to do this.
Congresswoman, let me challenge you on that, because I think not only was it that appeal to, hey, don't worry about your seat and don't worry about elections and let's get the job done, rah, rah, rah. Not only was it, in my opinion, useless, but it was counterproductive. Because no politician, and you know this, Democrat or Republican, is going to say, oh, my God, I was so inspired by the speech. Forget it. I don't care about my political career anymore. Okay, that's number one. And number two, these Republicans, and why it's counterproductive, because these Republicans haven't voted with him. They're not ever going to vote with him. And continuing to reach out to them is a waste of time, and most importantly, waters down the bills, waters down the change that he was elected to do. So I'm afraid by emphasizing that so much that he went on the wrong path here tonight.
Well, he didn't emphasize it so much. I would disagree with that. I think he made it very clear that the Senate has held up nominations, that it has used a 60-vote necessity, this filibuster, all the time, and that means that Republicans have to take responsibility for doing nothing if that's what they're choosing to do. I think he didn't say everything's got to be bipartisan. I think he really did call out both Democrats and Republicans to get things done.
I didn't get that sense at all. I thought it seemed like 80% of the speech was like, please, please like me. Now, I know I'm being harsh.
Interesting. You are. You definitely are. No, I think he was really saying, here's the way things really are. Here is what I think he believes, and I agree with him, that this is what we ought to do, and, go get it done.
So, Representative Schwartz, let me challenge you on some of the stuff that he has done. Because you said that, we got the 60-vote barrier, and don't get me wrong, that was my favorite part, when he pointed to the Republicans and said, look, if you block every single bill, then it's also on you, okay? And that was my favorite part of the speech, okay? But having said that, we always hear from Democratic senators, and I know you're in the House, right? But Democratic senators, we need 60 votes, we need 60 votes. And then they turn around yesterday and say, all of a sudden, on Ben Bernanke, he doesn't need 60 votes for reconfirmation, and all these Democrats are going to flip over and vote to close the debate, and so he only needs 50 votes. Why is that? Why did the rules all of a sudden get changed? In my mind, Ben Bernanke is a Republican and a right-winger and part of the establishment and part of what caused the collapse. So why does he get laxer rules than progressive priorities like financial reform and health care reform?
Well, you're right. I'm in the House and not in the Senate, and I'm not sure I can speak to it's not clear to me anymore than it's clear to most Americans why sometimes they use 60-vote rules, sometimes they don't, and I think most of that's because it's when someone calls for a filibuster and says, I demand a 60-vote rule, and if they don't, then they can go ahead and proceed with regular majority votes.
Okay.
So that's the way it works. If no one calls for a filibuster, which of course now they no longer require you to actually filibuster, you can just declare you want to. Without that, you can just you can go ahead and do as we do in the House and in most places. You only use a supermajority when you absolutely have a very major bill or some real controversy.
You're right that we're getting too far into the weeds.
Yeah, but this is about process, and for most Americans, they say, look, the rules are what you've created to get get it to work. You work the rules how you can, but what matters to most Americans, and really matters to us at the end of the day, is did you get done what needed to get done to address the major challenges facing this nation?
So let's talk about
and proceed. I mean, I'm not saying you violate the rules, but it's not only about process. We have so watched the discussion about process that we've gotten, sometimes you get lost in what are we trying to do and why are we trying to do it, and not only what are the goals, but what are our accomplishments.
The reason I concentrate on process is because that's the excuses that are used to block progressive priorities. Like that so-called bipartisan commission on deficit reduction, the Senate voted against it, and all of a sudden, Obama does an executive order, as he announced tonight, that he's going to get around that, which is really, really frustrating. But let's talk about what the House is going to do. We're talking to Congresswoman Alysson Schwartz. We got health care reform. It appears the two major options are simply pass it as the Senate has it, which we've had other congressmen on saying that that's not going to happen. But I'd love to get your perspective on it. Another option is get reconciliation in the Senate on things like the public option and pass both of them. Which option are you more inclined towards? Let's start that way.
But I understand what we're trying to move forward is I want to see comprehensive health care reform done, and exactly the way we do it. We're not. We would like to see some changes in the Senate bill. There's been a lot of work to negotiate the best parts of the Senate bill and the House bill. And again, we're concerned about affordability for Americans, making sure that the insurance industry does commit to those new regulations and enforcement, and we can do that on a federal level is really very important to us. But and there are a number of different ways we can get that done. None of them are particularly easy, but that's what we're going to move forward with, and it's most likely looking like we're going to, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to work within our rules to get a good full bill. I mean, not everyone believes that, but that's what I believe.
Let me ask you a very specific question about that then. Is the House willing to pass the Senate version without getting reconciliation on other portions that the progressives in the House want, including the public option? Are they willing to pass the Senate version first, or do they demand that reconciliation pass in the Senate first?
You want me to talk process? What I believe in the House is that we do think that there should be some changes in the Senate bill. And again, those changes reflect our concern about making sure that Americans can afford insurance, that we have strong consumer protections under insurance, and how we're going to get that done. I don't believe that we will just vote the straight Senate bill and nothing else. We are looking to make sure that we know that the Senate is going to pass the changes that we want made in that bill, and I believe that's the way we're going to get it done. All
right, final question is on the speech. I thought the Republicans were rude throughout. There was laughter throughout, and it seemed derisive at times. Did you also get that sense, and were you concerned about that?
Well, that wasn't my impression from sitting in the chamber. Sometimes you do see it differently on TV. But what I would say is that they seemed pretty stern and certainly did not applaud very often or seemed pretty negative. They sat there looking fairly somber, I think, actually, and did not really respond very much at all. Certainly did not respond positively at all.
Well, that is certainly
I thought that
true.
The president actually, his joke when he actually said to them, when the fact that we passed tax cuts for 95% of Americans, and they didn't applaud for that or even respond, the president was kind of joked with them a bit and joked with all of us, as he said, I thought they would be for that at least. And they weren't even supportive of that. And I think that was very telling. My own sense was, as you pointed out in some of your comments, is that we're going to see very little cooperation from Republicans in the House in particular. And most Americans would like us to find that common ground. When opposition leaders decide that they're going to simply say no, it's very hard to find that common ground. So we may well have to take that responsibility ourselves.
All right, Congresswoman Alysson Schwartz, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Watch more clips at theyoungturks.com.